Behind the smiling masks and shiny capes of 60s and 70s Halloween were outfits so dangerous they turned trick-or-treating into a dare. And before we're halfway, you'll meet the costume so unsettling, it was banned nationwide.
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Boxed vinyl smock, brittle plastic mask, eye slits like pinholes. For a few dollars, you became Casper, instantly. Parents loved the convenience. Kids loved the transformation. But those masks cracked, edges scraped skin, and the elastic snapped at the worst moment. Visibility was laughable. One sprint, one curb, and chaos. Kitchens smelled of pumpkin candles. Porches flickered. That mask trapped breath until it fogged. Yet every year, shelves emptied. The smiling ghost sold out because simplicity beat safety, and branding beat caution. Ben Cooper's cardboard box promised magic. The contents delivered heat, sweat, and tunnel vision. Still, the ritual felt irresistible. Tie the string, join the night, chase the glow, block to block. Casper was cheap, cheerful, and quietly hazardous. Tiny daredevils learned to navigate steps by feel, not sight, gripping paper bags like lifelines. If this friendly ghost felt risky, the next Disney icon aged into something far creepier than magical. Mickey and Minnie. Shiny ponchos, stiff faces, fragile elastic. Mickey and Minnie looked cute on the box, and very claustrophobic outside. Breathing was work, vision narrowed to a sliver. The vinyl whispered and stuck as bodies heated beneath streetlights. Parents praised the price. Kids craved the transformation. But a candle on a stoop or a cigarette in a crowd turned plastic into risk. Elastic bands snapped, edges bit into cheeks, sweat pooled behind the mask. Still, Disney ruled the decade, and those smiling mice ruled Halloween aisles. Neighborhoods filled with squeaky footsteps and fogged eye holes. Laughter punctured by yelps when masks shifted or strings popped. Costumes went on over pajamas, crinkling with every step. Capes twisted, ponchos tangled on fences. The fantasy persisted because recognition beats comfort, every time. And then came a beak so awkward and air-starving, kids tore the mask off mid-run just to breathe. Compared with that, Mickey and Minnie seemed tame. Donald Duck. Glossy tunic, sailor collar, big beak mask. Donald Duck sold instant identity and zero comfort. The elastic snapped. The beak bumped railings. Vinyl stiffened in the cold and stuck in the heat on Halloween night. Vision tunneled, steps misjudged, porches multiplied in the haze. Kids waddled, quacked, and laughed until the mask turned the joke. Parents bought familiarity. Children wore cultural gravity. The costume wasn't just apparel. It was branding strapped across small chests, trading breath for recognition. Every doorway tested depth perception. Every stare punished fogged eye holes. Sugar rushed, sweat rose, and the beak filled with breath, echoing each gasp. Some masks cracked at the edge. Others pinched the bridge of the nose until tears pooled. Still, the shelves emptied, because heroes and icons beat discomfort, again and again. Next up, a hero from primetime television, with a cape that snagged on doorknobs and a mask that made darkness feel deeper. Batman, Adam West style. Batman, in the Adam West era, was the hero of Saturday morning cartoons and primetime campy adventures. Kids eagerly donned the dark blue tunic, black bat emblem, and a stiff vinyl mask with tiny eye slits. To understand the 70s, you can't ignore this curious feature. Picture a child running from house to house, cape fluttering, imitating the heroic voice from the TV show. Parents appreciated the familiarity and cultural relevance. The costume was instantly recognizable and carried a sense of playful heroism. However, the design had issues. The rubber masks were uncomfortable, the capes could catch on door handles, and vision was limited in dimly lit streets. Despite this, children loved the drama of becoming Gotham's protector for one night. Batman's costume reminds us how television shaped imagination, and what happened next proves Halloween creativity could take a surprisingly wild turn. Robin, Boy Wonder. Robin, Batman's trusty sidekick, was a must-have costume for kids wanting to join the dynamic duo. It featured a bright red tunic, green shorts, yellow cape, and a small, stiff eye mask. What was once everywhere has almost vanished without a trace. Imagine a child dashing down the sidewalk, cape bouncing, imitating heroic leaps and whispering, "Holy, insert word, Batman." The costume gave them a sense of excitement and belonging, connecting directly to the popular TV show and comic books of the era. Yet, there were limitations. Masks pinched faces, fabric was flammable, and the colors often faded after one wash. At the time, however, that hardly mattered. Imagination covered every flaw. Robin's outfit captures the adventurous spirit of 70s Halloween, playful, bright, and sometimes risky. And if you think sidekicks were simple, the next costume shows just how unexpected some Halloween choices really were. Superman. Superman was the ultimate Halloween costume for kids dreaming of flying through the streets of their neighborhoods. It featured a bright blue tunic, iconic red cape, and the famous S emblem proudly displayed on the chest. It faded away, but its memory still defines the decade. Imagine rushing through the neighborhood, cape trailing behind, pretending the world was full of villains to stop and people to save. Parents loved the familiarity. Superman was heroic, wholesome, and instantly recognizable from TV, comics, and movies. Yet the costume had its quirks. The elastic masks pinched. The capes were sometimes tripping hazards, and the fabric lacked durability. Still, it didn't stop kids from striking heroic poses. Superman's outfit embodies the optimism and imagination of the 70s, and the next costume proves that not every superhero-themed look was quite so straightforward. Spider-Man. Spider-Man swung his way into Halloween popularity with a bright red and blue spandex suit, complete with web patterns, and a full mask covering the entire head. To understand the 70s, you can't ignore this curious feature. Kids zipped from house to house, crouching and pretending to crawl along walls, imagining themselves catching thieves and saving the city. Parents appreciated the recognizability. Spider-Man was fun, heroic, and tied directly to the comic books and Saturday morning cartoons that defined childhood. The design, however, had limitations. Masks made it hard to see, spandex could rip easily, and ventilation was minimal. Still, the thrill of embodying a web-slinging hero outweighed the discomfort. Spider-Man's costume shows how imagination transformed simple materials into adventure. And just when you think superhero antics had reached their peak, the next Halloween look reveals a completely different kind of chaos lurking in the aisles. Planet of the Apes masks. The Planet of the Apes masks were a strange but unforgettable Halloween choice in the 60s and 70s, featuring rubbery, oversized ape faces with exaggerated expressions. What was once everywhere has almost vanished without a trace. Kids would slip the mask over their heads, transforming into a menacing ape with minimal effort. Some even paired it with a matching jumpsuit, stomping around the neighborhood and making growling sounds that startled younger children. Parents often laughed nervously at the unexpected creativity, while others wondered if it was a little too frightening for trick-or-treat night. These costumes were popular because of the hit movies and TV show, which made ape characters iconic. Yet the masks were heavy, uncomfortable, and often smelled strongly of rubber, far from the soft, breathable costumes we see today. Planet of the Apes outfits remind us that Halloween could be bold and even slightly disturbing, and the next costume proves the line between fun and bizarre was only getting blurrier. Star Wars, Darth Vader, Luke, Leia. Star Wars costumes took Halloween by storm in the late 1970s, letting kids step into a galaxy far, far away. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Children could embody Darth Vader with his intimidating black armor and mask, Luke Skywalker wielding a toy lightsaber, or Princess Leia in her white robe and signature bun hairstyle. Streets became miniature battlefields as kids imagined duels, rescues, and daring escapes between candy stops. Parents marveled at how movies had transformed simple dress-up into elaborate role-play, turning ordinary evenings into epic adventures. The costumes were ambitious for their time. Masks limited vision, capes and robes tangled easily, and vinyl materials could be uncomfortable for hours. Yet none of that stopped the excitement. Imagination filled every flaw. Star Wars outfits show how pop culture could completely reshape Halloween. And just when you think costumes couldn't get more inventive, The following Halloween creations took creativity to astonishingly strange levels. Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein's monster was a classic choice that brought a touch of gothic horror to 60s and 70s Halloween. To understand the 70s, you can't ignore this curious feature. Kids would pull on a boxy tunic painted with bolts and scars, then slip on a stiff, green-tinged mask with square features and protruding bolts. The costume turned ordinary children into lumbering, stitched-together creatures straight out of a horror film. Parents admired the recognizability and cultural nod to Universal monsters, but some wondered if the frightening details might be a little too intense for younger trick-or-treaters. The materials were far from comfortable. Masks, pinched faces, fabric was rigid, and paint often cracked after one night. Yet the costume captured imaginations, letting kids embody a legendary figure in a way that felt both spooky and playful. Frankenstein's monster shows how Halloween could mix fun with fright, and as the night went on, costumes would grow even more daring and peculiar, leaving tradition far behind. Dracula. Dracula costumes were a staple of 60s and 70s Halloween, letting kids embrace the thrill of classic horror. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Children could don a black cape with a red lining, a ruffled shirt, and a pale mask with slicked back hair, pretending to glide silently from house to house. Fangs made from plastic or cardboard completed the look, sparking imaginations of midnight adventures and eerie encounters. Parents appreciated the simplicity and recognizability, though the long capes and masks often made movement awkward and vision limited. The design prioritized style over comfort. Masks pinched, capes could snag on doorways, and bright makeup often rubbed off after a few hours. Yet, the allure of being a suave, mysterious vampire outweighed the inconveniences. Dracula's costume reflects a fascination with the spooky and supernatural, and what came after proved that Halloween creativity would continue to push boundaries in unexpected, sometimes wild ways. The Mummy. The Mummy costume wrapped kids in ancient mystery, bringing classic horror to neighborhood streets. This detail says more about the 70s than you might expect. Children would be covered head to toe in strips of cloth or gauze, sometimes pre-glued or stitched onto a tunic, leaving only their eyes peeking through. With every step, the fabric unraveled slightly, creating an authentic, if slightly itchy effect. Parents admired the creativity, though dressing and securing the strips was often a challenge before heading out for candy. The design had its limitations. Loose fabric could drag or snag on curbs, and masks or head wraps sometimes obstructed vision. Despite that, kids reveled in the fun of embodying an ancient, eerie figure with every shuffle and stagger. The Mummy costume shows how imagination and hands-on effort defined Halloween back then, and the following costumes would continue to surprise with designs that were even bolder and more outlandish. The Wolfman. The Wolfman costume howled into Halloween culture, letting kids embrace their wild side. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Children donned fuzzy brown suits with attached gloves and boot covers, plus a molded rubber mask featuring snarling teeth and wild hair. Some even carried fake claws to complete the effect. The costume allowed kids to stomp through neighborhoods, growling, and pretending to be the classic, universal monster, thrilling friends and scaring younger siblings. Parents appreciated the recognizability, though masks could be uncomfortable and restrict sight. The design wasn't perfect. Rubber masks could be itchy, hot, and fragile, while the synthetic fur trapped heat, making it hard to wear for long periods. Yet kids loved the thrill of becoming a creature of the night. The Wolfman costume reminds us that Halloween in the 70s wasn't just fun. It was an adventure in transformation. And the next outfit proves that sometimes creativity could take a very strange turn. Skeleton suits. Skeleton suits were a spooky favorite in the 1960s and 70s, turning kids into walking visions of bones and eerie silhouettes. It faded away, but its memory still defines the decade. Children would pull on tight black jumpsuits printed with glowing white or neon skeletal designs, sometimes paired with full head masks shaped like skulls. The effect was dramatic in dimly lit streets, perfect for a night of trick-or-treating. Parents appreciated the simplicity and recognizability. No extra props were needed, and the costumes were often reusable year after year. The design had quirks, however. Tight fabric restricted movement, masks made it difficult to see or breathe, and prints could fade after one wash. Still, kids loved the thrill of embodying a spooky figure with minimal effort. Skeleton suits capture the playful eeriness of Halloween in that era, and the following costume proves that some outfits were far stranger than mere bones. Clown costumes. Clown costumes were a popular choice for Halloween in the 60s and 70s, long before they became associated with fear. What was once everywhere has almost vanished without a trace. Kids would slip into oversized, brightly colored jumpsuits, floppy shoes, and ruffled collars, topped with painted or rubber masks featuring exaggerated smiles and red noses. Wigs in rainbow hues completed the transformation. Children loved making silly faces, juggling imaginary balls, and performing little antics for neighbors, embracing the fun rather than the fright. Parents often appreciated the cheerful chaos, though some masks were uncomfortable and made it hard to see. The outfits weren't perfect. Masks pinched, fabrics were scratchy, and the oversized pieces could trip up the wearer. Still, the vibrant, playful designs captured the lighthearted spirit of Halloween at the time. Clown costumes remind us that what's considered fun or normal can shift dramatically, and the next costume takes a very different, unexpected turn. Cowboys and Indians. Cowboys and Indians costumes were a Halloween staple in the 60s and 70s, letting children act out their favorite Wild West adventures. The charm was obvious, but so were the problems. Kids would don fringed vests, toy holsters, feathered headdresses, and face paint, running through neighborhoods imagining frontier battles and daring escapes. Parents enjoyed the simplicity and recognizability. The costumes were easy to buy or assemble and immediately sparked imaginative play. However, these outfits were far from perfect. Masks could be scratchy, feathers fell out, and toy guns posed safety risks. Moreover, modern perspectives reveal cultural insensitivities that were largely overlooked at the time. Despite this, kids reveled in the excitement of pretending to be heroes and warriors of a long-gone era. Cowboys and Indians costumes capture a snapshot of how imagination and popular culture shaped childhood fun. And just when you think classic themes had been exhausted, the next costume proves Halloween could get surprisingly peculiar. Gypsy fortune teller. Gypsy fortune teller costumes were a mysterious and colorful choice for Halloween in the 60s and 70s. To understand the 70s, you can't ignore this curious feature. Children would wrap themselves in flowing skirts, scarves, and glittering jewelry, sometimes carrying a crystal ball or a deck of oversized cards. They would twirl, peer into the future, and add a sense of magic and drama to trick-or-treating. Parents often admired the creativity and theatrical flair, even if assembling the costume required a bit of effort and improvisation. Yet the costumes were far from practical. Long skirts could trip young wearers, scarves tangled easily, and masks or heavy jewelry could be uncomfortable. Still, the imaginative role-play made it all worthwhile, transporting kids into a world of fantasy and storytelling. Gypsy fortune teller costumes capture the era's love of mystical charm, and the next outfit demonstrates that Halloween fashion could get even stranger, blending whimsy with the outright bizarre. Nurse/doctor uniforms. Nurse and doctor costumes were a common choice for Halloween in the 60s and 70s, letting kids play grown-up and heroic for the night. Behind the style was a hidden story about the decade itself. Children would slip into crisp white tunics or smocks, attach a simple plastic stethoscope, and maybe add a paper nurse's cap or headband. Walking door to door, they imagined checking patients or performing daring emergencies, fully immersed in the fantasy of saving the day. Parents appreciated the recognizability and the sense of responsibility it encouraged, even if the costumes were more playful than realistic. The outfits weren't flawless. Masks or accessories could pinch or fall off, and stiff materials limited movement. Yet kids delighted in pretending to care for the world, even for just one night. These uniforms reflect the era's fascination with role-playing and authority. And as Halloween creativity evolved, costumes would become far more elaborate, and sometimes downright strange. Firemen's policeman outfits. Firemen and policeman outfits were a favorite among kids in the 60s and 70s, letting them step into heroic roles for Halloween. The charm was obvious, but so were the problems. Children would don shiny jackets, plastic helmets, and sometimes carry toy axes, hoses, or badges. Streets and sidewalks transformed into miniature action zones as kids ran from house to house, pretending to save the day or catch bad guys. Parents admired the sense of imagination and play, appreciating that these costumes encouraged active role-playing rather than just dressing up. Yet the outfits had limitations. Helmets were often oversized or uncomfortable, jackets were stiff, and accessories could easily break. Despite this, the thrill of embodying authority and heroism outweighed the practical challenges. These costumes capture the era's fascination with bravery and adventure. And as Halloween grew wilder, the following outfits would push imagination in directions even more unexpected and creative. Astronauts, Apollo program inspired. Astronaut costumes captured the imagination of children in the 60s and 70s, inspired by the excitement of the space race. Behind the style was a hidden story about the decade itself. Kids would don shiny silver or white jumpsuits adorned with patches, belts, and plastic helmets that made them feel ready to explore the cosmos. Walking from house to house, they imagined moon landings, rocket launches, and zero-gravity adventures, fully embracing the thrill of space exploration. Parents admired the ambition and creativity, knowing these outfits reflected a fascination with science and technology sweeping the nation. The design had practical challenges. Helmets could be heavy or fog up, jumpsuits restricted movement, and plastic accessories were fragile. Yet children reveled in the excitement of becoming astronauts, even if only for an evening. Astronaut costumes capture a moment when curiosity and dreams of the unknown fueled childhood play. And the next outfit takes Halloween imagination in a completely different, wilder direction. Alien masks, green bug-eyed style. Alien masks were a bizarre and thrilling choice for Halloween in the 60s and 70s, tapping into the era's fascination with outer space and UFO sightings. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Children would pull over oversized green rubber masks with exaggerated bug eyes, and sometimes add matching gloves or jumpsuits. The effect was instantly otherworldly, turning ordinary neighborhoods into miniature alien encounters. Parents often laughed at the creativity, though the masks were hot, stiff, and limited vision. Some kids even carried toy ray guns to complete the extraterrestrial transformation. The outfits highlight how pop culture and science fiction directly influenced children's play and imagination. Despite their odd appearance and cumbersome materials, kids loved the thrill of pretending to be visitors from another planet. Alien masks show how Halloween could be wildly imaginative, and what came after would be even stranger, blurring the lines between fun and outright weirdness. Witch with pointy hat. Witch costumes with tall, pointy hats were a Halloween classic in the 60s and 70s, combining charm with a touch of spookiness. This detail says more about the 70s than you might expect. Children would slip into long, flowing black dresses or tunics, tie on a belt, and perch a stiff, cone-shaped hat atop their heads. Some added broomsticks or plastic cauldrons, fully embracing the magical persona. Neighborhoods echoed with cackles and pretend spells as kids wandered from porch to porch, embodying the mystical and mischievous character. Parents appreciated the creativity and the theatrical flair, even if the costume was sometimes cumbersome or the hat kept falling off. The design had practical quirks. Capes snagged, hats were unstable, and Long dresses could trip the wearer. Still, children delighted in playing a character both enchanting and eerie. Witch costumes capture the timeless mix of fun and fright. And the following ensemble takes Halloween imagination into a surprisingly quirky realm. Scarecrow. Scarecrow costumes were a playful nod to rural life and harvest season, bringing a quirky patchwork charm to Halloween. The charm was obvious, but so were the problems. Children would wear plaid shirts, overalls stuffed with straw, floppy hats, and sometimes masks or painted faces to complete the rustic look. Walking through neighborhoods, they'd shuffle and wobble like the animated farm figures, delighting in the tactile, hands-on fun of the outfit. Parents enjoyed the creativity and connection to autumn traditions, even if some of the straw ended up everywhere. The design had practical challenges. Straw poked through sleeves, hats slipped off, and masks could make breathing difficult. Still, the texture and detail made children feel fully immersed in their harvest-inspired character. Scarecrow costumes reflect the playful, crafty spirit of Halloween in the 60s and 70s. And the next outfit takes an entirely different approach, blending humor and absurdity in a way few could have predicted. Pirate Captain. Pirate Captain costumes turned Halloween into a high-seas adventure in the 60s and 70s. The charm was obvious, but so were the problems. Kids would sport tricorn hats, striped shirts, sashes, and plastic swords or hooks, imagining they were commanding a ship in search of treasure. With each step along the sidewalk, their boots clomped like a crew on deck, while laughter and dramatic "args" filled the air. Parents appreciated the imaginative play, though the layered outfits and small accessories often caused trips or lost pieces along the way. The costumes weren't perfect. Hats tumbled, swords bent, and capes snagged on fences. Yet children reveled in the freedom to act out daring escapades, embodying a swashbuckling hero for the night. Pirate Captain outfits highlight the playful theatricality of the era, and in those same streets, some costumes were far stranger, almost like characters had escaped from an entirely different world. Hobo/tramp costume. Hobo and tramp costumes brought a quirky, humorous edge to Halloween in the 60s and 70s. Behind the style was a hidden story about the decade itself. Children would wear oversized, patched clothing, floppy hats, and carry small cloth sacks on sticks. Smudged faces with drawn-on stubble or soot completed the look, transforming kids into wandering, playful vagrants for a night. Neighborhoods turned into imaginary streets of adventure as children shuffled and stumbled in character, entertaining friends and neighbors. Parents often appreciated the humor and creativity, though some costumes required careful assembly to achieve the authentic, ragged appearance. The outfits had limitations. Clothing could drag, masks or makeup smudged easily, and props sometimes got lost along the route. Still, the playful persona captured imaginations, giving kids a tactile, hands-on way to enjoy Halloween. Hobo costumes reveal how humor and theatrical exaggeration defined the era, and in some corners, costumes could become downright peculiar, stretching the limits of imagination. Devil with pitchfork. Devil costumes with pitchforks were a mischievous favorite in the 60s and 70s, letting kids playfully embrace a little wickedness. The charm was obvious, but so were the problems. Children would wear red tunics or jumpsuits, pointy horns, and carry plastic pitchforks, sometimes adding face paint or masks for extra effect. They prowled streets, hissing and laughing as they went from house to house, delighting in the playful thrill of being a naughty character. Parents enjoyed the imaginative fun, even if the pointy accessories and masks were a bit cumbersome or sharp-edged. The design had practical quirks. Pitchforks could break or poke, masks restricted vision, and vibrant red fabric sometimes snagged or faded. Yet kids loved the sense of empowerment and the thrill of pretending to be a tiny agent of chaos. Devil costumes capture how Halloween encouraged daring and theatrical play. And somewhere in the same era, costumes emerged that were far stranger and more unexpected. Pumpkinhead masks. Pumpkinhead masks were a cheerful yet slightly eerie choice for Halloween in the 60s and 70s. What was once everywhere has almost vanished without a trace. Children would slip on round, orange masks with carved smiles or triangular eyes, often paired with green collars or leafy hats to complete the pumpkin illusion. Walking from house to house, they became literal jack-o'-lanterns come to life, delighting neighbors with the whimsical and slightly spooky effect. Parents enjoyed the simple, recognizable theme, though the masks were rigid, hot, and sometimes fogged up in the crisp autumn air. The costumes weren't without quirks. Masks limited vision, and oversized heads could make movement awkward. Still, the charm of embodying a living Halloween icon outweighed any discomfort, letting kids fully embrace the seasonal spirit. Pumpkinhead masks capture the playful creativity of the era, and in some households, costumes grew so strange and imaginative that they almost seemed to leap off the page of a storybook. Homemade ghost. The classic homemade ghost was a Halloween staple in the 60s and 70s, turning ordinary sheets into spooky fun. Behind the style was a hidden story about the decade itself. Children would take a plain white bedsheet, cut out eye holes, and sometimes add frayed edges or drawn-on details. With every step through the neighborhood, they became floating apparitions, gliding across lawns and porches. Parents appreciated the simplicity and creativity, as the costume could be made from items found around the house, saving money while still delivering a playful scare. The design had practical quirks. Sheets could drag on the ground, snag on fences, or slip off entirely, and vision was often limited to the cutout eyes. Despite these challenges, kids loved the eerie thrill of embodying a ghost for the night. These homemade ghost costumes capture the era's hands-on ingenuity. And some of the costumes that followed were even more wildly inventive, pushing imagination to unusual heights. Caveman/cavewoman outfits. Caveman and cavewoman costumes brought prehistoric adventure to Halloween in the 60s and 70s. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Children would wear faux animal skins, jagged tunics, and belts, sometimes carrying toy clubs or bones. Walking through the streets, they imagined hunting mammoths or defending their caves, fully immersed in a playful version of the Stone Age. Parents appreciated the hands-on creativity, though the costumes could be scratchy, and the faux fur often shed everywhere. The outfits had their quirks. Irregular hems snagged on porches, props were cumbersome, and the material could be uncomfortable for long wear. Yet kids delighted in stepping into a primitive world, enjoying the tactile and imaginative play. Caveman costumes showcased the era's fascination with history and role play, and as Halloween evolved, some costumes became so peculiar that they almost seemed like characters from another dimension. Random monster mask plus poncho combos, Ben Cooper style. Ben Cooper-style monster masks paired with simple ponchos were a quintessentially 60s and 70s Halloween creation. What was once everywhere has almost vanished without a trace. Children would pull over brightly colored plastic masks featuring witches, skeletons, aliens, or goblins, then drape a matching poncho over their shoulders. The effect was instantly recognizable, playful and slightly surreal, a mix of fright and fun that only that era could deliver. Parents appreciated the convenience and affordability. The costumes were easy to buy, store, and reuse, making them ideal for families on a budget. The design had limitations. Masks were stiff, ponchos could tangle, and the combo often restricted vision and movement. Yet, kids embraced the bold colors, strange proportions, and imaginative characters with sheer delight. These monster mask and poncho combos capture the joyful creativity of Halloween past. And so ends our journey through the whimsical, bizarre, and unforgettable costumes that defined childhood for a generation. A celebration of imagination that, for better or worse, lives on only in memory. From glow-in-the-dark skeletons to handmade ghost sheets, these weren't just costumes, they were the magic of childhood itself. Which one brings back your fondest memories? Or did we miss your all-time favorite? Thanks for joining us on this whimsical journey through decades of Halloween imagination. If you enjoyed traveling back in time, don't forget to like, subscribe,